Because you're an introvert, your whole life, people have been making it seem like there's something wrong with you. They ask you questions like, are you okay? Is something wrong? Why are you so quiet? Every introvert knows what it's like to hear this question over and over again. And over time, you start to believe that maybe there is something wrong with you. I'm here to tell you that that could not be further from the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just an introvert. Actually, the opposite is true. There's something very special about you in the best way possible. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why being an introvert is your superpower and why nobody should make you feel bad about it. Hi everyone, welcome to my brand new channel. I'd love if you could hit that subscribe button. You'd be part of my day ones, and your comments are going to help to build this channel into what it becomes. My mission is to help women to become their highest selves and to win at the game of life. So let's get into it. A little bit about me. I am a classic introvert. I want you to imagine a little Black girl growing up in a very predominantly white place, and I had glasses and braces and frizzy hair, and on top of that, I was an introvert. I didn't know how to be social, especially with all these people who didn't look like me, who treated me differently. And you can imagine I had extremely low confidence. And that shy little girl came with me into adulthood. I remember being somebody who was just like the observer, like I was a side character. I wasn't important in my own story or anybody else's story. I was just kind of floating through life, and that was very normal for me. I was very smart on paper, but in order to be successful, I knew that I would have to build my confidence. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I went on this journey of building my confidence. And I went from somebody who was a very shy person in an entry-level role at the company I work at to being a senior leader and someone who's not afraid to use my voice, as you can see right now. And I did all that by accepting that I'm an introvert, but leaning into my superpowers. And you probably have the same superpowers, and I want you to know exactly what those are. Your first superpower is that your words carry weight. When you speak, people listen. You don't just talk to talk. When you speak, you make an impact. And the reason for that is because you think before you speak, unlike some people. There might be a little bit of extrovert shade here, but it's all with love. Just keep that in mind. But yes, you think before you speak. And so when you do speak, you are bringing value to the conversation. You're pushing the conversation forward. When you're part of a conversation, you probably do sit back and you listen and you're making connections, you're critically thinking, you're processing, you're putting things together. And then you have a really great perspective to add to the conversation. It's probably something that nobody else in that conversation has thought of. I forget where I heard this piece of advice, but it's actually so good. When you go into a meeting or a conversation or a negotiation, you don't want to go in as the person who begins the conversation, who starts off speaking. You want to be the person who sits back and kind of observes the conversation, comes up with a unique point of view, and then you come into the conversation. And when you do, people turn to listen because your voice has become this new thing that's part of the conversation. And so people kind of sit up and their ears perk up because you just jumped in. And so that's the kind of power and leverage that you have as an introvert, because you have that natural ability to sit back and observe with this calm, grounded energy and then come into the conversation. So really don't undervalue the fact that when you speak, you make an impact. Your second superpower is that you're intentional. When you come into a situation, you're ready, you're grounded, you're prepared. And introverts, we do this because we are terrified of being put on the spot and not having anything to say. And so we are more likely to over prepare for a situation, for a conversation, for a meeting. And that's a good thing. I believe that introverts are some of the best public speakers because we're so willing to prepare. And that's something that I've leaned into. I think I'm a great public speaker because I prepare engaging presentations ahead of time. And I don't get caught, rambling or doing the other things that some extroverts do, hogging the mic, things like this. I am prepared, I'm succinct, and I get the message across. And that's the kind of power that we have as introverts. When you go into a meeting, you're probably going to go in with some thoughts ahead of time. You're probably going to have some ideas ahead of time. And that's the kind of thing that really stands out. While everyone else is scrambling, they're just saying, spitballing things that might not make sense. You're already prepared and you come in with something that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, pushes the conversation forward. The next superpower is that you create real connection. And I know you're thinking to yourself, no, I don't. I don't have a lot of friends. I'm not that good at connecting with people. I'm not the life of the party. No, you are. I promise you. Well, maybe not the life of the party, but you are really good at connection. Let me ask you something. You're at a dinner table and there's maybe 8 people at the dinner table. Are you speaking to the entire dinner table, or are you turning to the side and speaking to the person who's next to you? More than likely, you're the person who's turning to the side and speaking to the person next to you because you're better in one-on-one connection. Know that when you're speaking to somebody one-on-one like that, you're creating a deeper connection. And if you're an introvert, you more than likely don't like talking about yourself. You would rather talk about the other person. So you're asking a lot of really great questions. You're asking probably a lot of thoughtful questions because you're a thoughtful person, and know that that is creating a good connection. Harvard researchers found that when people talk about themselves, it lights up the brain's reward centers. So the same place that lights up around sex or food or pleasure, this is lighting up in the brain of the person you're talking to because you are allowing them to talk about themselves. As an introvert, you are okay with putting the spotlight on the other person. So when people walk away from you, they are feeling good. And know that that is the basis of great connection. Your next superpower is that you have incredible ideas. And you're probably thinking, no, I don't. Yes, you do. Your creativity comes from observation. It comes from reflection. It comes from spending time with your thoughts. You're somebody who spends a lot of time with your thoughts. And in doing so, you probably have great ideas. You've probably come up with solutions to problems the greatest minds on our planet have not been able to come up with. If I wanted to have a conversation about the meaning of life or the future of AI or how to end poverty, I would rather speak to an introvert because you have probably given thought to a lot of topics a lot of people have not given thought to. 1 in 2 people on this planet are introverts, and that tells you right there that this world needs introverts. You have great ideas, you just need the confidence to be able to execute them. So think of people like Barack Obama, Beyonce, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. These are all introverts who had the confidence to bring their ideas to life, and you can have that too. The next superpower is my favorite. It's actually my favorite thing about myself. It's that you're independent. And I know you're probably thinking that that's not really a superpower. Understand that there are people who really struggle with spending time on their own. I know somebody who won't go to the grocery store by herself because it makes her uncomfortable to be by herself. And she's an extrovert, by the way. So don't take it for granted that you are independent and you can spend time on your own. In a 2014 study, researchers found that 67% of men and 25% of women could not sit by themselves in their thoughts. They would rather give themselves electric shocks than to sit there in silence for 15 minutes. So think about the fact that this is really hard for people to be independent and to be on their own and to sit with their thoughts. And that's something that comes naturally to you. You don't need external validation. Everything you need is already inside of yourself. And that's something that you've learned early on. And that's a superpower. I could keep going on and on about superpowers, but I'm going to leave it right there. I believe that introverts are some of the most undervalued people in society, and that with confidence, you could take over the world, honestly. Okay, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe and come back right here where you'll see more videos from me. See you next time.